Hello, I'm author Randall Smith, and I'm here to read a few clips of stories that are available on the Kindle that I've included in my collection, Willful Women, which is also available on the Kindle in its entirety. And the first story is called The Sinclair Affair, and it's a story of a young orphan woman who survives an assassination attempt to discover that she may have a twin. She ventures off to the city to find her. Alyssa was beginning to work her way through the crowd when she noticed someone following the other young woman. It was Sonny. At the same time she spotted him, this young woman spotted her and showed a look of stunned disbelief. With an instinct that only an identical twin can have, Alyssa knew without a doubt that this was indeed Rose. She signaled to her that she was being followed. There was an expression of panic, and Rose was gone. Sensing the danger, Alyssa quickly faded into the background as well, with a feeling of security knowing that she had her Glock. Another excerpt is, they were interrupted by someone kicking in the front door. It was a big, bald oaf who reminded her of someone named Guido that she had once seen in a mob movie. Her backpack was sitting on her lap. She edged her hand in, ripped her lock, and released the safety. "You're coming with me, girlie," he bellowed. Petite Alyssa sat on the sofa looking as sweet, innocent, and vulnerable as ever. It was the image that Polly had come to know her by. She had been itching for a chance to use her special toy, but each time it had come close, the chance had slipped away. This time would be different. Another story is called About Sam. It's a story of a typical housewife with the somewhat typical marital problems, married with children. However, unbeknownst to everyone, she's also an agent for Homeland Security. She found a significant friend along the way that she had at one time worked with. She was in the service. "If I can take you right here, right now, we do things my way," she challenged confidently. "I'll take that daring any day of the week," he responded as he shook his chest out and tried to look manly. Before he could take his next breath, Dex found himself on his back, looking up into his lady's blue-green eyes. She had him pinned down, with one of his arms behind his back. As she stared down into his baby blues, he gave his arm an affectionate twist. With his free arm, he pulled her close and kissed her. Next one is Lost in Space-Time. It's a science fiction, obviously. A large disc-shaped craft came into view. It dwarfed them in size, appearing to be at least 20 times larger. It was hard to tell, though, as once again they weren't sure how far away it was. It may have been even larger. It had a notch on the edge of its round shape and was gently pulsating with a bright white color. Soon, a few more similar ships came into view. "Oh my God!" exclaimed one of them as each looked both horrified and excited at the same time. "I bet the energy burst from that wormhole of BBs must have somehow attracted them." There was suddenly a state of confusion and chaos aboard the starship Aspiration. Soon, even more of the large discs appeared and began circling the Aspiration like large fish in the sea circling their prey. Another excerpt from the same story. Kayla now reached back over her shoulder and pulled out the whip. She swung it about and then wrapped it around the fallen girl's neck. She gleefully dragged her around and looked over at Kirk and asked, "Okay, tough guy, what are you willing to do to save her?" This is from an episode before she gets kidnapped, abducted by the extraterrestrials. Next is a thriller called Old House on Delaney Street, where a demented old couple kidnaps several teens for their entertainment in the basement. Read the story to find out what they do. Bethany was awakening in complete darkness into a splitting headache. She tried to speak but was gagged with some sort of ball in her mouth. She tried to move but was tightly bound onto something. Hours passed and she could feel her muscles becoming stiff. As a ray of daylight finally worked its way through the distant window well, she could see that she was bound to some exercise equipment in a bent-over position. She could also see she was not alone. Some 10 feet from her was a good-looking young man. He wore shackles and was also gagged. Uh-oh. Later on, we get another episode from that little story. Her warden slapped her hard. "You need to learn some manners, sweetie." The large woman dragged her outside of the playroom and into the other section of the basement where she and Papa had a workshop with a nice assortment of power tools. She turned on a table-mounted electric buzzsaw, and it began spinning ominously. She forced Bethany's hand onto the table in front of the humming blade and said, "When you don't cooperate, you get punished." "Stop! Wait! I'll do whatever you want!" Mama released her hand and Bethany fell to the floor. Another story called The Pirate Queen. It's a story of a young spa girl, an innocent young thing who gets kidnapped by drug runners and then gets kidnapped by a more vicious group of the same. Along the way, she's visiting her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. "I'm losing my good looks, Bobby. I look old and fat," she whined. "Oh, baby, you don't look old," he said. Later, they have a couple special guests when the pirates have kidnapped them in a basement bunker, getting ready to have some fun with them, and one who sounds a little like Al Pacino in Scarface with a Cuban accent. "You talk too much, and you just broke our rule to talk only when spoken to," he said. "You don't impress me as ready to do whatever we say. Gina, come over here and take the little toy." Carlos said, as Alejandro held out the woman's yellow taser gun. They proceeded to show her how to adjust the control. "She's chunkier than the others," Alejandro said. "You'd better turn it up a notch or two." Gina fired the weapon and the woman yelled out in agony. "Oh, this is fun," she exclaimed. "I'm glad this place is soundproof." Later they have one of their sex slaves being a footstool. Her and her special guest that she's just kidnapped. The sex slave has to leave. She looks over at her special guest. Sissy?" said Gina. "Yes, Gina?" "You wouldn't mind, would you?" she asked as she looked down at the now empty space by their feet. Having seen the importance of submissiveness, she said, "No, I don't mind, Gina." She rose from the large, comfy chair and repositioned herself to become the new footrest. Gina rested her feet upon her special guest's back and smiled as she got more comfortable and ate some popcorn. Later on, they're getting ready to have an auction, trying to sell some other girls. "Taser! Taser!" shouted the sadistic gathering. This was an assembly of outlaws prone to violence, none with a conscience. Some had been members of outlaw biker gangs up north, but were now opting for the warmer climate of the Caribbean. One of them began hoisting a pirate flag up a pole in the yard. There was no one that the girls could appeal to for help. Another story, called Adventures in Toyland, is a fantasy. It has a golden harpy. As she was about to cry, an amazing creature fluttered down from the sky. It was one of the mythical harpies, half bird and half woman, with wings large enough to wrap itself inside if desired. She too had golden hair and seemed to take pity on a suffering girl. The harpy was unable to speak human words, but made her concern clear as she cocked her head to one side and made strange squawks of curiosity. Another story called Polar Opposites. It involves a motorcycle club. There are two women, each masquerading as someone else, who meet after they've both gotten connected with a group of bikers. The bikers deal with the typical things that bikers deal with, drugs, such. The bartender from the biker bar was dragged in, accompanied by a young woman who was bound and gagged. As the pair was positioned by the edge of the pool, Jenny continued talking. As she spoke, she pulled out a Glock, which had been hidden behind one of the seat cushions, and began attaching a silencer. "Let's have some fun, love," Jenny said as she helped Tricia to stand up and moved her over to the pool's edge in front of the new guests. "There's one round chamber and an empty clip. Kill the bartender for the video camera, and I'll let you live. If you don't, I'll shoot him myself in such a way that he falls into the girl who knocks her into the pool. We'll all watch her drown, and it will be all your fault. Do it for both of us, love, and for the nice girl," she said as she wrapped Tricia's hand around the grip. "Kill for me now," Jenny commanded. Later in the same story, after they've been enemies and getting ready to be friends maybe again, she relaxed in a hot bubble bath, listening to soft music, sipping some red wine, and surrounded by burning candles. Suddenly, she sensed she wasn't alone, and looked up to see Jenny standing over her, brandishing her pistol with its attached silencer. "I'm back," Jenny gloated. "This can't be good," she said fearfully. "What are you doing here, Jenny? How did you get in?" "I got in because I'm good at what I do. You've been a naughty girl, haven't you? It wasn't nice arresting me like that. I hope you've learned your lesson." She sat on the side of the soap bubble-filled tub as she threateningly slid the edge of the silencer along poor Kristen's face. "What do you want, Jenny?" she asked uneasily. "Suck on this," she ordered as she grabbed her by the hair and forced the weapon into Kristen's mouth. The two of them remained motionless as the seconds ticked by slowly and as they peered into one another's eyes. "Did you miss me, love? I suggest you say yes if you want to live." Chris nodded affirmatively. Jenny sat pondering a while, enjoying her moment of dominance. She broke the silence as she reached into the bubbles for Kristen's hand and said, "Here, hold the gun for me, love." She then began to undress. Chris gently eased the weapon out of her mouth and asked, "Unload it, huh?" "Nope. All you'd have to do is release the safety and it's good to go. You could shoot me and claim self-defense. Who would ever question that?" And finally we have a story here called Micky, Mallet, P.I. It's a story of a woman who used to be a cop. And it starts out. The portly, wealthy businessman had been found dead on the floor of his high-rise office, with a pair of broken eyeglasses lying next to his head. A bullet hole in the window was clear evidence of what had happened. The nearest building of comparable height was a half-mile away, indicating this had been the work of a professional. So there you have it. That's some reading excerpts from some of my stories that are available on the Kindle. If you'd like a little more information, go to www.willfulwomen.info, I-N-F-O. And thank you very much for your attention.